Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome in to the Gramlich and McLean podcast presented by Ingles, the official supermarket of Gramlich and McLean, and welcome to football season. No, there aren't going to be games played this week, but for the Gramlich and McLean podcast, for the rest of the world, August begins this week. So for us, football season officially begins. We're back to 3 episodes a week. Let's get it, Eric McLean.
Let's go, KG. I do have to kind of address this first. You look fantastic. You've been kissed by the sun. You're back off vacation. How was it? This was the first big baby beach trip, right?
It was. I think I looked relatively tan. Did not get sunburned. Again, that's 2 years in a row of officially growing up. And it was Jacob's first trip to the beach, and Mac, he loved it. He is a beach baby.
That's perfect.
We would bring him out there in our stroller, shout out to the Bob, and just kind of sit him there with his fan, get him right with the breeze. The ocean was his sound machine. If anybody has kids, you know what I mean when I say the sound machine. And he was just chilling. So we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. And Mac, you were at ACC Kickoff. So we have a lot to discuss and to break down with that. But I also saw, and to me, nothing says summer like a freaking BLT.
Come on.
And I saw you made a BLT with those beautiful Ingles tomatoes.
It was so good. If you guys are listening to this on Monday, you saw it yesterday on my Instagram. I was walking around Ingles, and the produce was just popping. I mean, KG, you know this. Anytime you walk in there, it's so vibrant. I mean, it looks good.
Yes.
They did a great job with their stores and the way they set it up, or at least the one that I was in. And it was beautiful. I said, okay, this is what we're doing, Khaki Mac. We're going the BLT route, and golly, it was perfect tomatoes, so fresh, so good, and then all the other ingredients that go with it. So go check out that on my Instagram if you guys didn't see it, and go to your local Ingles. So let's get a quick message from them, and then we're going to jump into everything ACC football.
At Ingles, we're proud to work with hundreds of local farms and businesses in the communities we call home. Not only does it ensure that you get top-quality, fresh items for your family table, it's a way for us to support the amazing individuals who pour their heart and soul into delivering the very best they can do. Quality, freshness, community, it's all in the bag. Ingles, low prices, love the savings.
So as we said before, I was at the beach, and with the old 2-month-old situation, I was not going to be able to go to kickoff this year anyway. But Mac was there, and Mac was all over it. Of course, I was following every little thing, every move on Twitter, and Mac was giving me updates. And of course, you were on the ACC Network set all week long. You guys did an awesome job. But let's just start being there, Mac. Your overall reaction. Who was confident? Who maybe wasn't as confident as you thought? What was the vibe at kickoff?
Yeah, it was so much fun. And first of all, everybody was asking about you. So I had to say, well, new mom, she gets a couple vacation days. She picked right. So I told them that. And you were out there, but thinking about them. And really, I tell you what, there was a different vibe, excitement when Florida State walked in the room.
Okay.
Because it was kind of like, oh, there they are. But then it cranked up another level when Dabo and the boys walked in. Like it just was different. And I'm even looking on set, and Eddie and the guys are like looking over, oh, there's Coach Sweeney, there's so-and-so. And it's just cool, right? It's fun for us to be around and be around everybody and get to talk about summer and kind of off-camera stuff. But then also just diving into their teams and seeing all these guys. So I will say that Coach Sweeney and company had a real swagger about them and just an excitement to get back on the field. Cade Klubnik was electric with all of his answers. Will Putnam did a great job representing the big boys up front. And, of course, Tyler Davis. It was funny. He kind of had his podium answer and answers. And somebody asked him the question, if you guys don't win the championship, is that considered a failure? And he kind of was like, well, and everyone just started dying laughing. So it just goes to show you, the standard that some people have and don't have, kind of for their season. I love what I saw from Duke and heard from Duke. I mean, they were ready. They've got a tough schedule. We'll jump into this when we're doing our ACC previews, which are coming up starting this Wednesday. But they were feeling good, and they should. They have everybody coming back. Monk and Dwayne Carter did great. The big boys looking like a security detail for Riley Leonard, who was wearing our socks, by the way. Shout out
Let's
Rock'em
go.
Socks. He looked fantastic.
And Kay
just hearing from
Klubnik
Coach.
wearing Rock'em Socks that we sent him as well.
That's right. That's right. You love to see it. You love to see it. But Coach was awesome and really fired up. So those were kind of the three that, just kind of stood out just amongst everybody else. Everybody was awesome, great interviews. Everybody was great representation for their schools. But when those three were in, for whatever reason, it was just a little bit different.
I like that, Mac. I think that may be the most confident we've seen Duke at an ACC football kickoff in quite some time. We're going to give some points on each team and kind of go through days 1, 2, and 3 and go by the teams in that order. We're also going to explain our championship picks and our player of the year picks. That's at the end of the pod. If you missed those, they're on Twitter, but we will dive into that, we promise. So make sure you stay tuned. Let's start with some of Jim Phillips' comments just when he addressed the media. Some things that stood out to me, Mac. He said the Success Incentive Initiative, basically revenue share via success, so you get more if you win, starts next year. He also said the ACC is open to expansion, and he emphasized the ACC needs to do well in non-conference games. We obviously know that. I wanted to bring up a tweet here from Bud Elliott, who is a college football guy, covers a lot with Florida State as well. Yeah, Bud. And the big news that came out of the week really was that Colorado's jumping back to the Big 12.
KG,
it's just
Would
crazy.
it be ACC Media Day without somebody's conference expanding?
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I saw David Hale tweet 2024 Harvard to the Sun Belt. That's what we're going to hear.
That's right.
Which is just hilarious. But I thought he made a good point when Jim Phillips said, "Hey, we're open to expansion," and Bud Elliott basically said, "Who out there that's not in the SEC or the Big Ten already or Notre Dame would even be worth it for the ACC?" And the Big 12 is getting a lot of buzz right now because they're adding some new teams. They're a new look Big 12, and I think that league's going to be really fun and interesting. But Bud Elliott's point was there's not a single team in that league that is trying to truly win national championships. Now everyone is, but can actually say they can do it. Whereas the ACC, and he said has 3, which I assume he meant Clemson, Florida State, and Miami.
North Carolina, maybe?
I didn't know who the third was necessarily, but I think that's a good point. And overall, Mac, just the thought on the ACC expanding, that really kind of surprised me from Jim Phillips' comments.
Yeah, well, a lot of different things to touch on, Jim. We'll hit a couple here, but I think to answer your direct question there about who do you go and get, I mean, if the Pac-12 falls to pieces, which slowly the earth is removing, do you call Oregon? Do you call Washington? Do you call Utah? I think it's intriguing, but then we're in the same predicament that the Big Ten is in, and you got these really outrageous things and rivalries happening, that you're going across the country. Now, if you do kind of the reverse Notre Dame thing, and is that just football? Is that just basketball? Is it just women's basketball, men's basketball? Then it probably makes more sense, when you're talking about these big revenue, money generating things. I think you just have to get creative, and you have to be forward thinking about it. I think, kind of just sitting still, I don't know if it's the best. I mean, I said that 2 years ago. I said it last year, and I still remotely feel that way, that, just waiting things out isn't the best option. Number one, you're kind of recruiting your own people to stay, enticing your own people to stay by going and getting this bigger, brand name deal, which, I mean, Oregon, that'd be awesome. Washington, that would be awesome. Utah at times, that's fantastic.
It's literally the furthest away.
Right. 100%.
You can possibly go, like Miami playing Oregon.
Right. But how awesome does that sound? I mean, that's amazing. And the Crystal Ball Bowl is
of course.
Brilliant. But yeah, I mean, it has to make sense. It can't be for, all 28 sports that the ACC sponsors. It has to be specific. It has to help things out, get these media deals, all these different things, which that's only a couple of sports, right? So when I'm thinking about that, the football heavy thing, West Virginia is still enticing for me because of that regionality and getting the state.
The problem with all that, though, Mac, is you've got to split the pie even more.
No, see, if you do that, all negotiation restarts.
Yeah, you redo your negotiation.
You're redoing a deal. You're redoing a deal.
But can West Virginia move the needle enough to make that deal jump from $30 million a school to $50 million a school?
Not alone.
I don't think so.
No. But Oregon and Washington, I think, can. And ultimately, we all know Notre Dame is the golden ticket, right? And I hate saying that because I can't stand the way that they handle it. Everyone knows that. So I think that's the intriguing piece. And if it happens, great. If not, who knows what happens? Maybe we start seeing teams test these waters.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right, Mac, where you can't just sit around and think the status quo is going to be just fine because
Right.
everyone else has blown that away.
Yeah.
They're done with that. But my point with bringing this up is I think what we want to emphasize is the Big 12, yes, they're the fun, new, kind of interesting conference right now.
Right.
But, and yes, I know TCU played for a national title last year. Don't get me wrong, of course, but they also got beat by a trillion. There are teams in this league that can compete for national titles, and that's something the ACC really has going for it right now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a bunch of G5 schools that got together to come to Power 5, and it's a winless Colorado from a year ago. Like, great,
Yeah,
awesome.
That's the other thing with Colorado. They were terrible last season.
Yeah. And again, I'm worried about my house right here and,
Sure.
and us in the ACC, but yeah, it's fun to talk about, and obviously it's cool to do. But at the end of the day, I think Bud's kind of spot on. What numbers does it really matter? All these different things. I don't think it does. Some other things that Jim said about the out of conference essential, especially this year.
We've been
all
saying
the
that.
all the great matchups that the ACC has. Really a nice opportunity in the first 4 weeks to create a new narrative, and we know that has to be sustainable over time, and that's what makes you valuable. You got to go win, and you got to go win the big games. The last thing that he said that I touch on before we kind of get going here is this is a very important fact. Because the Big Ten is out, right? They can't have any games on ESPN now unless it's playoff, whatever. The SEC's only halfway in because of their deal. They still have CBS and all that. The ACC has a real opportunity here to be on ABC Network, ESPN networks, in primetime spots a lot. You've got to take advantage this year. You've got to take advantage of it. You have to be worth watching when you're on there because, again, that's that narrative shifting. We're in it right now. Like, this year is vital to be able to do that. And again, to write that story the way you want. The good thing is we've got a lot of potential for great teams, and I'm excited about that. The timing of this window could not be more perfect when you see the quarterback play, the brands, where they are, and the steps that we need some of those brands to take. They've got a airway. Just get on it and take off. That's all you got to do and make it happen. So there's a lot from an administrative point of view that can happen this year that can be very lucrative and very fun for the ACC.
Very good point. I don't think some people might not realize that the Big Ten is completely off of ESPN and that the SEC is still has some games on CBS. Okay, so let's get to some of these teams, Mac. Day one was Syracuse, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Louisville. The things that stood out to me, and then you tell me because you were there. Oronde Gadsden is going to be absolutely special. He already is. Dino Babers was saying, don't put him in a box. Don't make him play a specific position. We're just going to get him the football. And then I thought the talk, and not just the talk. I mean, we saw Miami go to the portal. Miami knows they got to get better on the offensive line. Absolutely vital. Protect Tyler Van Dyke. It feels like Miami understands that last year was so bad, and they're not trying to say, when teams are bad and they're saying, oh, we returned 10 out of 12 starters on defense. Right. Like, sometimes that's bad. I feel like Miami is truly trying to wash the slate clean, which I like. Yep. As Max said off air before we started, I'm kind of buying Miami, and I said, oh no.
I know.
Here we go. And then the other team from that first day, Mac, Louisville was getting some love. And I know you got to talk with Jeff Brom. So give me some thoughts on those day one teams.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was exciting. Every day is exciting, right? You're going to hear me say that word a billion times, now until January, just because that's my point of view. But I'll start with Syracuse and Oronde Gadsden, Garrett Schrader. I mean, those two guys, geez Louise, they just look awesome and we're ready to go. And Coach Baber's excited about it and really just kind of asked Garrett, because I was so intrigued in this question, and we'll dive further into it more for the Syracuse day, which is coming up this Wednesday. You guys have to jump in to that episode. But, just hearing him saying, hey, look, Oronde's the guy, right? Everybody knows where he's lining up, where he's going to be. They've got to find him. He's Where's Waldo. How do you continue to build that success? And, between Garrett and Coach Babers, they said, you got to work harder. You got to work that much harder this year to have the same, if not better, results, to get open, to catch the balls, to be that reliable target. And so they're going to be creative, with motions and getting him in unique matchups and moving him around where you can't just stack a guy over him and have cloud coverage behind him or have a safety, kind of floating his way. They're going to protect him in that sense. But it also opens up the door for everybody else. You got to make plays. There's going to be so much attention on 19. The rest of the receiving core and playmakers have to step up and be ready to go, if he is locked down. So that's intriguing. And again, Syracuse, when you look at that schedule, man, I just have a think that they have a chance, to go bowling back-to-back seasons, which is such a massive deal for them and really kind of a sneaky team here.
And Mac, they did bring up, they were talking about LaQuint Allen, so that makes me feel like he's going to be a big player.
That's right.
Which they need him big time.
Yeah. A little bit of a strange thing with how it happened, but he's going to be away from the team for a couple weeks, but he'll be back in the middle of camp and be ready to go. Miami, you hit it. It's all about the offensive line. And the scouting and prep I was doing getting ready for this, I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. Fall in love again. I'm liking these guys.
Every year.
And literally, Coach Mario Cristobal comes across the room up to me and says, hey, big man, you're going to really like this offensive line. I'm like, gosh, dang it. I was like, here we
Mario.
are.
I'm back. The way to my heart.
Yeah, the Canes are back, baby. No, but I do think, when you look at the additions to what they had and the pieces that they have, it sounds like Jalen Rivers might be the guy stepping up at the left tackle spot. Javian Cohn, transfer from Alabama, all SEC type performer. Matt Lee was rated the #1 center by Pro Football Focus, and then some other guys that they have kind of sprinkled throughout. They feel really good, and Coach feels really good, and everybody who is involved and around is excited about the. Matt Lee showed up at Media Day. I mean, he was their leader. He was already diving into this program and really taking a step. So I think because of all that, we're feeling good.
If Messi can go to Miami, then who doesn't want to go to Miami?
Let me just tell you this. Coach Cristobal, if you're watching, get us some tickets, big dog. Come on. I know you got the pool. I know you got a box there or something.
Mac, you got to be on Celebrity Row, so you're next to Kim Kardashian.
Kim K. Yeah, me and Kim go way back. So I think for all those reasons, I'm excited about the Hurricanes. And again, we'll further discuss them. Georgia Tech and Louisville, you have two guys who are born, raised, bred Georgia Tech and Louisville leading your program with Coach Key and Coach Brom. That there was a great energy surrounding that and a great excitement just to hear from both those guys. And I love Coach Key, man. Being a former offensive lineman, he and I have a nice relationship and a different bond than most. And just his passion. I mean, he stood up there and said, "Listen, expectation-wise, I can't tell you wins and losses. I have no idea. What I can tell you is our boys are going to play their tail off. They're going to be physical. They're going to hit you in the mouth. You're not going to want to play Georgia Tech." And that's what you love to see. I mean, it's not fair for us to sit up and say a number for what they might get, and that's not reflective of the progress that they'll have made. Louisville, Coach Brom's awesome. He's excited. He's jacked up. He's an evil genius when it comes to offensive play call and the production and the things that he's going to get his guys going. I really enjoyed just kind of seeing that twinkle in his eye when you mentioned Kentucky, because he's going to get that game back and really put emphasis on that and locking down the state and all the things that come with it, KG.
And by the way, we talked with Brian Hudson. That will be coming out in our Louisville preview episode, and he was echoing those sentiments. And I think people forget that Louisville won 8 games last year. They have a new coach because Satterfield chose to leave.
That's
right. They didn't need to fire anybody.
Right.
So, and they do have a lot of new pieces, but this is a team that did win 8 games last year, and this schedule with no Florida State, no Clemson, no North Carolina is very manageable. So I think the talk of Louisville being a sleeper, possibly finishing in maybe the top 5 of the league, perhaps.
Right. Yeah.
I'm buying that. And I think Jeff Brom is going to inspire these guys right away.
Yeah, Mark Packer's all over Louisville, and really it's because of what you just said, who they don't play. And when you see that, man, shoot, you got a great opportunity, a great shot, especially in year one. I think, again, the complexity of their offense, the playmakers that they have, and hopeful that others step up. I mean, they went to the portal and just totally reloaded offensively, especially playmaker-wise. Louisville's going to have some firepower, and I can't wait to see it.
Yep, it's going to be really interesting. Okay, the teams that we saw on day 2, Duke, Pitt, Florida State, Virginia Tech, and Virginia. Let's start with Florida State, obviously the big dog on that day. And the Florida State hype train is going. It's been going since Florida State won their bowl game. It's been happening. Florida State has not won the ACC since 2014. Let's remember this. Will they be the favorite picked by the media? We will see. I'm intrigued. But Mac, overall, did you feel like Florida State felt more like Florida State when you were going to kick off as a player?
Yes.
Did it feel like that kind of reputation, if you will?
100%. 100%. And I can't remember who was there with Jalen Ramsey, but Jalen Ramsey could take up for 5 different guys. Like, he's that much of a talker.
I remember talking to Dalvin Cook at kickoff maybe the year after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure Jalen Ramsey was there too. Yeah.
So he was feeling good. The Noles were thriving, in 15 when he was there, and the things we did go on to beat them, by the way. But it was fun, and that's kind of not to the it's cockiness with him. I mean, that's what it was. Not to that level, but it was more of this. Okay, we've got a really good team. Like we feel good about it. I'll say Coach Norvell. I mean the directness with his answers, the examples that he would give when asked a question, pulling all these names. I mean, just the names, just the production and all this talent. You're just like, daggone. Like, this should be a really good year. And then just hearing from the guys. Like Jordan Travis, we've had him on before. He is a quiet guy. He's a killer.
Very humble, though. A very humble guy.
When you ask him, no. When you ask him a question, he talks about everybody else. I'm like, Jordan, I want to know about you. And it's just how he's wired. It's just how he's wired. But, when you look at Trey Benson, you look at Johnny Wilson, you look at all these receivers that they brought in to go with, one of the more talented quarterbacks in the country, you're feeling really good about it. So with all of that in mind, KG, I do think the Noles are going to be in a good place this year. However, I think Clemson will be number 1 when it comes out with the preseason rankings there.
We're getting to that. Stay tuned. We'll let the people in on a little bit of an internal struggle we had. Duke, the Duke hype, the Duke confidence, Riley Leonard, Mike Elko. I saw Dabo Sweeney reaping praise onto Mike Elko. I think people are buying Duke, and the thing with Duke, Mac, is just the age-old situation where, can you live up to expectations after a year where you won a bunch of games when you had 0 expectations, right? That's the difference. It's a different challenge.
I'll actually say this. I don't think people are buying the Duke hype. I think that EJ, Kelsey, Coach, Eddie, yourself, I think we're having
trying
to scream
to tell y'all.
We're having to scream it at people. They just don't understand. They're still locked in that Duke is Duke, and that's not the case. These guys have everybody coming back, and I'm sitting here talking with Riley, and my goodness, he's feeling really good. I mean, I expect a big year from him. Has everybody back from a production standpoint. That running back room is freaking loaded. They had like 4 guys at the running back position, over 400, 500 yards, all of them back. Riley ran the ball like crazy. I will say they have a really tough schedule, and again, we'll break all that down kind of game by game and our thoughts there, but they have a tough schedule. I understand that. But I think these guys win at least 9 games again. I mean, they're 14 points away last year from being undefeated. That's crazy.
That's insane.
When you put it together. All the close games that they have, finding ways to win, coming up a little bit short. I think we see growth from this team. I'm excited. I have talked my way into having Duke number 3 in the league to start the season. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
3rd. Yeah, and I still see some kind of national writers when they put out their ACC power rankings. They have Duke 6th or 7th. Duke's going to finish in the top 5.
Right.
They're going to finish top 5. But it's just a matter of, can they take that leap and finish 3rd?
Yeah.
Can they beat Clemson to start the year?
Right.
Whoa, Mac, hold on.
Easy.
Let's be easy here. We'll see. But yes, Duke, I'm glad to hear they came in with a certain level of swag and confidence. And then, Mac, the team that probably goes under the radar every year more than anybody, Pitt. Freaking Pitt. You know what Pitt's going to do every year? They're going to go out there. They're going to win 8 games at least. They're going to be super physical. You're going to enjoy watching them play. They're going to stick together as a unit. I mean, I love Pitt. And having Phil Dracovic, who's a super talented guy, and that kind of reloading on the D-line for the Panthers, you can't sleep on the Panthers.
No, you absolutely can. I mean, these guys just year in and year out reload. I mean, they totally deserve and earn that kind of respect and understanding that, hey, it doesn't matter who lines up on that defensive line, they're going to feast. And somebody is going to emerge as a very high draft pick and be a really productive guy. I mean, they're sprinkled all throughout the NFL right now. It's so impressive to see. And, Coach Narduzzi, all he does is win and produce gritty, nasty football players, offensively, defensively. And that's what we're going to see from them again. I think the perfect world for Pitt offensively, just when you see what Phil Dracovic can do and what they have, is if they can be like 2,500, 3,000 yards passing, 2,000 plus rushing. That's where you're in a perfect spot, and this offense is really firing on all cylinders. The running back room is nasty. The offensive line is maybe the best that they've had since Narduzzi has been there. So all of that to say, I think Pitt's going to be a great team. And right there on that, kind of second tier, I think everybody's kind of separating Clemson and FSU, which rightfully so. But I think that second tier, which the ACC has needed for so long consistently, Pitt's finding a nice little home there and going to challenge those number one guys.
Oh, for sure. And it all starts in the trenches. We know that Pittsburgh is generally one of the better teams in the league on both sides of the trenches.
Right.
Sometimes they can make the argument to be the best on the defensive side of the ball. Sometimes, Clemson has something to say about that, but Florida State has something to say about that. Pittsburgh getting some more love, but I think still being slept on. And Mac, before we get to day 3, we want to at least say something about Virginia Tech and Virginia. The fact that they're arguing over who's the flagship school in the state when they both are not going to be great was something. But did you have any thoughts on Virginia Tech?
Well, I will say this for Virginia Tech, quarterback is going to be something just to monitor. And I don't know if it's, war tactics or what, but nobody was mentioning Pop Williams. And I thought that young freshman who we saw have a great spring game, I thought he was going to have a shot, but nobody's really, talking about him at all. And again, don't know if that's on purpose or what, but, Grant Wells and Kyron Drones, that's where it seems to be right now. And if both can elevate their play, then that's great. You want a young guy to sit and learn and get his opportunity, and then he can kind of take over as the guy. But it just can't be more of the same. And listen, Virginia Tech did a great job, right? They went out and got some monsters at wide receiver, but just do you have somebody throwing it to them on a consistent basis and able to make plays? That's what we'll kind of find out. I mean, Ollie Jennings is a freak, and he was so confident. I really enjoyed sitting down with him, KG, and we had a little bit more time with him than others, just because the way the set was and things of that nature. That dude is a beast. I mean, he's super smart, very cerebral. We kind of dove into, how do you approach a route with alignment? What do you see in coverages, and how does that make you adjust? And, man, he was just rattling off all these things. I'm like, wow, this is super impressive high-level stuff that, you just don't get to hear from every receiver, given that opportunity. So I think he's going to be special, but somebody's got to throw him the ball. And the more Virginia Tech folks that I spoke with, they were kind of concerned about that offensive line.
Well, we've been praising some offensive lines. I think the teams that we're higher on, we know what we're getting from the O-line. Some teams that we're lower on, we don't know what we're getting from the offensive line.
That's right.
Mac, day 3, Clemson, North Carolina, Wake Forest, Boston College, NC State. Every Clemson fan that's listening to this podcast wants to know. This is the question. You were there. You talked to him. Is Cade Klubnik it? Is he the guy?
Yeah, he is. No, I'm joking. He's the guy. What's funny? The way you just asked that. There was a guy, and I wish I knew his name. Actually, not. I wouldn't say his name because maybe he would feel bad. But he asked Cade. It was Cade's last question on the podium, and he goes, "What do you have to say to the people that maybe think that you're not the right guy, that you're not the guy to lead this program?" And there was just kind of this weird, like, everyone's looking around at each other in the room, like, what the heck is this dude talking about?
Did he ask that to any other quarterback? It's an awkward question for a guy who's QB1.
Yeah, I just happened to be in there. And it was just like, Cade was like, I'm going to do my best to help the team win. And then, like, walked off. It was just like, what a weird way to end it. He's the guy. And he's confident. He's excited. He looks thicker. He's gained some weight, which is great. You need that, especially that freshman to sophomore year. And, it seemed like just his understanding and confidence of the offense moving forward is going to be really high. And I think that'll certainly be aided by some wide receivers staying healthy and being available. Everybody lit up when they were talking about Adam Randall and the things that he's going to be able to do. Maybe he emerges as wide receiver 1 there, for Clemson. But that'll be the biggest ticket, I think, in regards to difference of, what can we expect to see from those guys. And of course, having Riley, be the new offensive coordinator, Garrett. I'm excited to see it. And the confidence that Coach Sweeney had of all of those guys and just being complimentary, it was very impressive.
Yeah, I think Coach Sweeney has sounded more confident than he had maybe the last couple of years. And we
Right.
recently interviewed Dabo, and that'll be in our Clemson preview episode. So stay tuned for that later in the month. And because all my clothes are dirty from the beach, I'm wearing my Matt's El Rancho t-shirt.
There
Mac,
you
that
go.
won't mean anything to you, but it will mean something to Cade. So
you
I'm
go.
just decided to
Tune
wear
in,
it out of
Cade.
nowhere, but
Right.
Cade understands. Okay, North Carolina, Drake May, he's there. He's a superstar. He's the reigning ACC Player of the Year. He could be the number 1 overall pick. Nobody has questions about Drake May, but everybody has questions about everything else, right? I mean, that's a fair way to put it.
It is. And I think especially, the defense, I guess, is my biggest concern, just how much
Yeah.
better can they be? And I tell you what, though, Cedric Gray was there in all black. He's cut his hair. He just looks like a hitman. I mean, he looks like John Wick out there ready to handle his business. He was confident in his guys, and they've added a handful of pieces in the portal that you expect to step up and hopefully be better. But the biggest thing for me is that defensive line. I mean, there's so many 4 and 5 stars all across that thing that just have to step up and live to the narrative,
That's
that they
right.
help create for themselves and, be productive. And we'll jump into more of that in individual guys and what I need to see. But offensively, I feel really good, about North Carolina. I think Drake is, just going to take another step and remind people why he's one of the best players in the country, not just the conference. But I think adding those 2 wide receivers that they did, and Nate McCullum and Dez there, they're going to be impressive and ready to go offensively. So I'm feeling good. And, of course, Coach Mac Brown, the mayor of the ACC,
The mayor.
he got everybody right. And I love talking with that guy. He's the best. He's the best.
Coach Brown could talk up, if his team was a bunch of 12-year-olds, he'd have you thinking,
That they're going to win.
we're ready
That
to
they're
go.
going to win. That's
you,
right.
you better get ready. Get ready for the squad. Okay, Wake, Boston College, NC State. I think of those 3, NC State, it's the law of the wolf, Mac. When NC State has hype, they're going to underperform. When they don't have as much hype, they're going to overperform. And that's the way I see NC State this year. Not as much hype, even though people I think are interested because you've got Robert Anai, you've got Brennan Armstrong, and you're going to probably be able to score some points. And Peyton Wilson is back on defense. And Dave Doran feels very stable, Doran's program right now at NC State.
Right.
But I think that's a team that could have a better year than people think.
Well, sure. And I think certainly what are we going to get from Brennan? We've seen 2.
That may be one of the biggest questions that we just don't know.
Right. And seeing is it going to be the guy that threw for 4,500 yards, or the guy that struggled? And quite frankly, he addressed it. We talked to him about it. He said, it wasn't fun. I wasn't having fun. I was frustrated. Guys were on different pages. I was missing guys. Guys were dropping the ball, all these different things. And, he just said, I needed a fresh start. I had to go. I gave my all to Virginia, and it just, it was done. And got his degree and jumped in the portal. And, I think it was really weird seeing him do the Wolfpack when he came up. And we kind of addressed, he was like, yeah, that felt kind of weird, but I like it. I like it. I like that I'm here. And, I think the reunion between he and Coach Anai is going to be beautiful. And just helping guys along with the offense. He said it is going to be a little different than when he was at Virginia, schematically, but also personnel-wise. I mean, they don't really have a Keaton Thompson rolling around, a Swiss Army blade that can do, really anything for them. But, he said camp, we're really going to jack it up. And, spring was vanilla. And now we're going to really do install and get people going and, see how much everybody can learn. And, I thought that was really unique hearing that from a player, not a coach. That was from a player.
Because he knows the system.
He does.
Yeah.
And he's an older guy. He understands it. And he also said, I've got to get kind of fired up because in the spring I was just kind of sitting back and looking around. Now I have to really assert that so guys don't freak out when I do that in the middle of a game. So kind of knowing yourself there. And then great to be with Coach Doran. Love Coach Doran and appreciate his time, his perspective, especially about those defensive guys and, really just how, it stinks because they've had those injuries defensively, but it's now a blessing because guys have gotten opportunity that they wouldn't have, behind some of these great linebackers that now it's their time, full time, and they're going to be ready and they're going to shine. So he feels confident about those young guys or inexperienced guys coming in, but also that secondary. I mean, with Battle and White, I mean, those guys are going to be locked down corners getting after it.
Do we have any thoughts on Wake and BC before we get to what the people really want to hear, our championship picks, our player of the year picks?
Yeah. Wake Forest, I mean, I think they're going to be good. They have a tough schedule, too, and they have a brutal stretch. I mean, my goodness, I think it starts with Clemson, Virginia Tech at both those places back-to-back, which, my goodness, you see those two in that environment back-to-back. That's rough.
Yeah.
And then it just continues.
And
it's
then
a
Pitt,
brutal
and
stretch.
then Florida State. That's stretch. A
Horrible.
classic Wake Forest October.
Right, exactly. So that's going to be tough, but I think they're going to be fine. Business as usual, a lot of points, a lot of production. Mitch Griffiths is going into year 4. He knows this offense
crazy.
as well as a coach. He's just got it going on, and the receivers that they have are nuts. So I feel confident in that standpoint. Defense, they lost some really good guys, but everybody that I was talking to feels like they're going to be better defensively. They have some younger guys that are growing up, and have some more athletic guys here and there. So I'm going to be fascinated to see that. But the biggest thing for Wake is November. Like, you've got to win. You've got to figure out how can we finish strong. That has been such an Achilles heel, and we'll jump into some more numbers of that aspect as we go on here. And then BC, I had really low expectations for them going into this thing. Just who they were going to be production-wise when you lose as much talent. But after talking to those guys and talking to Coach, I mean,
they got
you feel a little better. Yeah, they did. Kind of like Miami. I feel better about what we might see. And Emmett is a big dude. I mean, he's as tall, if not a little taller than EJ Manuel. Big hands, rocket launcher arm. I mean, he looked every bit of 240 at 6'5" and a half. And you feel good about him. I mean, the way he finished the season, KG, with a couple of 330, 340-yard performances, I think BC is going to be fine. And if Patrick Garwo can get back to being a 1,000-yard rusher, BC might be a really very asleep sleeper to do some damage in the ACC this year.
Well, of course, they have Christian Mahogany back, too.
My boy. He looked great,
best
by the way.
offensive lineman in the league, at least we think
freaky.
so.
Yeah.
And interview with him coming up in August, too. But that will help Pat Garwo, and he actually told us about their bond, Pat and Christian. Okay, Mac, I loved hearing some nuggets about each team, but now it's time to get down to business. And we posted these on Twitter, so you may have already seen them, but we need to explain ourselves. Our ACC champion, our preseason champion, and our preseason player of the year. We agree on one of these, we disagree on the other.
Yep.
So let's start with champion. And I'm going to set this up, Mac, because Mac knows I've been struggling. I've been praying on it, actually. I needed help.
A lot of prayers.
A lot of prayers. Because I think, and rightfully so, not that I didn't want to.
Oh.
I'm buying the FSU hype. I'm buying it. This team, it's not just brand. It's not just the logo. You look at this roster and you say,
loaded.
dang. I mean, this team is loaded. And they won 10 games last year. So you've got that carryover, that momentum. Can they take the next step? And so it's very logical. Like, I'm not going to fault anybody for taking Florida State to win the league. And I thought about doing it. At one point, I texted Mac. I said, I'm taking Florida State. But
Not one time, multiple times.
I know. In the end, I just couldn't do it. And there's a few reasons why. A, the game between Clemson and Florida State is in Clemson. Now, yes, if things go as we think, they're going to play twice. But Clemson has been so good in ACC championship games. Charlotte and Bank of America Stadium is a second home for the Tigers.
Right.
And Cade Klubnik already has won one. Yet his best game of his life so far has been that ACC title. So that lack of experience for FSU. And then I saw this stat tweeted out by my former co-host, William Quackenbush, that Florida State Mike Norvell has really struggled against ranked teams at Florida State. I think he has one win against a ranked team on the road at Florida State. So it's just...
And that was North Carolina, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. You're betting on these guys that haven't done it before to do it. Yeah. And right now, is Jordan Travis better than Cade Klubnik, a more proven quarterback? Yes.
Absolutely.
But beyond that, I still think this Clemson defense is going to be so salty. And I'll get to my player of the year, and that's another reason why I have Clemson winning. But I ended up going with Clemson, Mac. And Mac, I don't think ever faltered. Give us why you're taking the Tigers.
Well, I mean, the biggest hiccup with this Clemson team these past 2 years, one of which they did win an ACC championship and were undefeated in conference play, was the quarterback position and the offensive coordinator, position there for the coaching staff. Both of those have changed. Both of those are different. Both of those are, I think, going to be at the level to which it was when I played there in the years to come after until this kind of happened. So with all that, I mean, I think Clemson's back to dominating. I think Clemson's back to embarrassing people.
So you don't even think,
mad.
Do you think, did you have to think about it, Mac? Did you debate in your head?
No. Until
so
you
is
show
Clemson,
it to
Florida
me.
State not going to be close in Death Valley?
Maybe.
In September?
Maybe it won't. Maybe not.
Oh, man. Interesting.
Maybe not. I hope it is. We need it. The league. Listen, and this is weird, too, because I'm wearing like 4 different hats when I'm thinking about this, right? Because I have the former player, I have the Clemson guy, I have the ACC guy, and I have the logical guy, which that guy doesn't come out a ton.
So many personalities, man.
So many personalities. It's tough inside of there. And it's weird because here's where I want to be super protective and all about the league. But then when people start coming at my Tigers and start saying negative things, it's like, well, hold on now. Well, let's reverse this around and look at stuff, which I'm not going to throw a bunch of stats out here until one team starts losing, and then I will, and I'll tell you this is what we should have thought. But I need to see it. I need to be proven that Florida State can win against ranked teams. Hello.
On the road.
0-3 last year. Need to be able to beat these guys and beat Clemson. Hasn't happened since 2014. Like those are very sticky points that I don't want people forgetting.
Sure.
With that said, they have a ton back. They have so much experience, all of these production. I mean, they should be monsters. When I look at Clemson, though, all of that said, it being at home, the production that they have, defense is going to be unbelievable. I talked to Coach Sweeney about, just going into year 2, for their defense and defensive coordinator there, and he's excited. He thinks it's going to be a brand new team, get really back to what they expect and the level that they expect to play. So with all that being said, I think we see Clemson and Florida State play twice. Okay. I do think that Clemson wins both and is back in the college football playoff.
I'm not going to go there yet. We'll give those picks later in August. We'll give some playoff picks. But I'm with you on all that, Mac. And here's the bottom line. If Clemson had not changed offensive coordinators, I think I'd be picking Florida State.
Right.
I think it's really that simple. And the fact that Garrett Riley is pretty proven overall and has a proven track record. And Clemson has a proven track record of being more creative than they had been in the past. Right. So that was the difference maker for me. All right, Mac, player of the year. Why don't you go first on this one? Give me your player of the year.
You know what's fascinating about this? Player of the year is not who I think is going to be the first team quarterback, which is crazy. How do you do that? I don't know. But I went with Drake May as my quarterback for the first team. But I went with Jordan Travis as my player of the year. I think the stats, what he's going to do, is just going to be absolutely nuts. I think his team is going to be better. And I think that's a lot of juice, behind that gets you awards and gets you player of the year awards and things of, that nature. So it's kind of weird for me. Preseason, first team, it's a little bit of what you've done, not necessarily as what are you going to do for me, the way I kind of look at it a little bit. But when I look at who I think is going to be the preseason player or the player of the year, that to me is more potential. And I think Travis is going to go absolutely nuts. I think he wins it and gets it done.
Mac, I hear you on Jordan Travis. Okay, this guy's going to have an exceptional year. To me, the 3 options for player of the year were Drake May, the reigning ACC player of the year, Jordan Travis, and Will Shipley. And what we have seen with, unless you have just an absolutely incredible year like Drake May last year, a lot of times the team that wins the regular season, the best player in that team is going to have a leg up. And if Jordan Travis plays really well at Clemson, if he plays really well at Pittsburgh, those big contests for them, and Florida State wins the regular season, it's probably going to be Jordan Travis. But that's not the way I really see it going. And I think Will Shipley has the perfect mix of he's known enough, but he can kind of come out of nowhere to the national people, and blow away expectations, which is the way you win these awards. Here's my stat, and why I didn't go with Drake May. There are 4 quarterbacks in ACC history to win back-to-back ACC Player of the Year awards. Only one in the modern era.
Wow.
Who was the guy in the modern era, Mac?
Deshaun Watson?
Lamar Jackson. Lamar
Really?
Jackson.
Well,
the
that
only
just
one.
goes to show you. All that
So
was rigged.
the only guy to
Unbelievable.
win it in the modern era won the Heisman. And actually, the last two guys to do it also won the Heisman. Charlie Ward did it in the 90s for
Wow,
Florida
Charlie
State.
Ward. Come on,
The other
Charlie.
two were Steve Fuller for Clemson in the 70s and Roman Gabriel for Duke
Shout
in the
out.
60s.
That's right.
Mac.
That was a bad boy.
So
It was a bad boy.
with these awards and with the way we operate now with Twitter and all social media, I think it's hard to win it when you've already won it because we just pick you apart.
Sure.
So that's why I didn't go with Drake May. And I think if I have Clemson winning it, I feel like a Clemson player has a better chance of getting it. I think Will Shipley in this Garrett Riley offense is going to explode, both running the ball and catching it. I think we're going to see more of that with Shipley. So that's where I'm going for my player.
I can't wait.
But I think Jordan
I can't
Travis
wait
is a
to
great
see it.
pick.
Yeah, of course he will.
It's a great pick.
All these guys. I mean, it's going to be so much fun. Talking season, it's commencing. We're going to do a month of talking
Let's
season,
go.
KG, and then it's time to ball. So as KG said on the front end, we've got all of our ACC previews coming out. UVA and Syracuse will come out on Wednesday, and then Boston College on Friday. Then you got jump in next week, and we get it rolling. 3 episodes a week, guys. It's going to be so much fun. And we're here. We're so close. Kickoff is right down the street. Can't wait to get after it. But that's it from us. Another great episode of Gramlich and Mac Lane presented by our great friends over at Ingles, the official grocer of Gramlich and Mac Lane. Always appreciate them and all their hard work and help that they do with this. We need you to do us a favor, though. Go over to YouTube. You're not going to want to miss these. Seeing all these guys, all these coaches, former players, it's really fun interactions. You got to love it. Go over to YouTube, subscribe over there, leave some comments, talk on the episodes. We greatly appreciate that. And then, of course, the OGs over on Apple Podcasts, rate, review, subscribe. We would greatly appreciate that. But until next time, we'll see y'all.